Welcome back to Narrow Path Doctrine. My name is Jim. I read through the Psalms each and every night along with other texts as well. And this particular verse jumped out at me like they so often do, that just leaped off the page. I guess that would be leapt off the page, wouldn't it? Yeah. Psalm 40:10 is the verse that I want to talk about here today. It says, I have not hid thy righteousness within my heart. I have declared thy faithfulness and thy salvation. I have not concealed thy loving kindness and thy truth from the great congregation. Now, this verse is a testimony of a man who has been delivered by God and simply cannot remain silent. I know exactly how this feels. Now, of course, this was David speaking not as a neutral observer, but as one who has tasted the salvation of the Lord. What he declares is not opinion, not personal insight, but divine realities: righteousness, faithfulness, salvation, loving kindness, and the most important, truth. These are not man-centered themes, they are God-centered proclamations. This is not language of fear, self-preservation, or religious diplomacy. It's the language of holy compulsion. When God saves a man, he also looses his tongue. I want to dig down into this verse just a little bit more, and we'll do that here next. Our verse here today starts off by saying, I have not hid thy righteousness within my heart. David doesn't deny that God's righteousness dwells in his heart, but he refuses to keep it there. Truth received but not confessed is truth simply dishonored. God's righteousness is not given merely for private comfort, but for public declaration. The righteousness is not man's moral effort either. It is the righteousness of God himself, his just character, his sovereign judgments, his covenant faithfulness, and ultimately his saving righteousness bestowed upon the elect. A regenerate heart cannot treat divine truth as something to be hidden for fear of opposition. Silence in the face of truth is not humility, it's actually disobedience. Our verse continues by saying, I have declared thy faithfulness and thy salvation. Notice the order here. David declares God's faithfulness first, then his salvation. Salvation flows from faithfulness, not from man's decision. God saves because he is faithful to his own promise, his own covenant, his own purpose. This is sovereign grace language in the Psalms. Salvation is not presented as a possibility, but as a work accomplished by God and announced by his servant. David isn't inviting the congregation to speculate here. He's proclaiming what God has done. Those who speak God's truth faithfully will always emphasize what God does, not what man contributes. As our verse continues, it says, I have not concealed thy loving kindness and thy truth. The word loving kindness here speaks of God's covenant mercy, steadfast, electing, unbreakable love. This is not general sentimentality, it's particular mercy toward those whom God has chosen. Truth is joined to loving kindness. Biblical love never exists apart from the truth. The truth is never softened to protect human pride. David doesn't edit the message to make it more acceptable. He doesn't conceal hard truths to preserve peace. This is so important here. Faithful proclamation means refusing to dilute doctrine even when the truth offends. As our verse continues, it says, from the great congregation, David speaks openly, publicly, and without shame. He doesn't reserve truth for private circles or safe environments. The great congregation includes mixed hearers, some receptive, some hostile, some indifferent. True servants of God don't wait for ideal conditions to speak the truth. They speak because God has commanded it, not because it's welcomed. Public truth-telling always carries cost, but silence costs a lot more. Psalm 40 ultimately points beyond David to Christ. The verse is fulfilled perfectly in the Lord Jesus Christ, who openly declared the righteousness, faithfulness, salvation, loving kindness, and truth of God without concealment. In John 18:20, we read, Jesus answered him, I spake openly to the world. I ever taught in the synagogue and in the temple, whither the Jews always resort, and in secret have I said nothing. Christ didn't hide the truth to preserve his life, and neither should those who follow him expect an easier path, right? This verse is not a rebuke to timid personalities either. It's an encouragement to faithful obedience. Those who speak God's truth are not driven by pride, but by obligation. Silence would be betrayal. So if you find yourself compelled to speak, teach, or declare God's truth somehow, some way, well, even when you are misunderstood, resisted, or even called someone who preaches the doctrine of demons, that compulsion is not fleshly. It's the fruit of having been delivered. Faithful speech is not measured by applause or followers or subscribers, but by faithfulness. So Psalm 40:10 in conclusion here reminds us that truth concealed is truth denied. God's righteousness is not given to be admired silently, but to be declared boldly. Those whom God saves, he also sends. Not all are called to the same platform, but all are called to the same faithfulness. And when the conscience is clear, the testimony stands firm. I have not concealed thy loving kindness and thy truth. All right, thank you so much for joining me here today. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up and share it with others. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so and click the notification bell to get updates when new videos come out here on the channel. So until next time, remember, true doctrine matters. God bless.
I will always believe, no matter what. In your arms I'll rest. The case is closed and shut. I will always